Hello, this might be a rather rambly um, vocal video for today because I feel like this need that I'm going to need to press on with this book. The book being The Need for Words by Patsy Rodenberg, where I've done the introduction and I was hoping after kind of introduction with a lot of kind of grand pronouncements that we'd get on to the promised practical craft exercises. That hasn't happened. That apparently was just a clearing of the throat, and now we're going into full, more kind of justification of the need for words and the need to connect with words. And there's some good stuff in here, but there's no, uh, it's, we haven't quite gotten to the concrete part yet, Patsy. So I'm gonna just power through this chapter in hopes that the next chapter is. I have a feeling if I stop and try and pick everything apart that kind of I don't react as well as the good stuff, that I will get bogged down and I will just not get through the book. So I've got my highlights and stuff like that transferred onto a word file, so I can kind of we can skip through things. So yes, this is connect the need for words. So this is yet more justification, Patsy, for the need for words. We need to impress upon my audience who's come to me to help them with language, who's probably got a kind of a, if you're coming to Patsy for help with speaking, you think that that's sort of like, okay, we can take some things as assumed, but no, we're going to assume that we're all illiterate morons who don't see the power of speech. And also maybe it's because we don't see it as rosily some ways as Patsy seems to, or she seems to. Sometimes I feel like she's equating being an effective communicator with being that means what you're communicating is going to be honest and truthful, which I don't agree with. Or you might believe in it. You might really believe in it, but that doesn't necessarily make it true or helpful or not harmful. So let's just kind of, I'll read out things and I'll kind of comment on them as we go. It is the detail that breaks or elates the heart. We are what we speak, and as we speak, we know who we are. This is the, in action, that is, we self-realize, I suppose. And also, if you're a vocal coach, that's going to be the most important thing, is you're speaking, not maybe other deeds. The right to speak, coupled with the need for words, taps into all parts of body, heart, mind, and spirit. It ignites in our body and is gathered and then released in our breath, bubbles up through our voice until finally, with a sense of relief and release, the words are articulated, then escapes us, which is what a really verbal person would say, which I am a very verbal person. I just question whether this is universal as Patsy thinks it is, especially in today's world. Um, um, there's the but learning is to play superbly and movingly takes choice, practice, and desire. I'm assuming that is that this is the whole thing of you process information into knowledge, into a part of yourself by actually speaking it. Then we get into the kind of the how we've fallen on bad times. Most of us no longer trust words. I mean, we are certainly in a society where words are weaponized to use against groups. Words are used to sell us things. Words are used to indoctrinate us to powerful interests who can hire really great communicators to push their particular message. So it's not necessarily a thing. And this is where we get into the whole thing of true communicators only speak truth, which I disagree with. Now, the world is noisy and it takes an effort to listen. Silence is rare. Words have to compete in this distorted world. Their meaning reduced and abbreviated. Their sound and sense squashed. I can see arguments for that. There is also sort of just the thing of democratization of text. At one point, the very small group that was speaking, that was reading, we're going to be highly educated people. Now that is not such the case, and for that reason, things get simplified. Illusions don't get made. The senses aren't maybe all there. Um, Words are always words, and that's me. We've stopped being an oral society, and I think she would argue that Patsy Rudenberg that we've become a visual society, that the visual has overtaken the oral. Though it's interesting that we probably had a segment in there where it was a text-based society, which I guess is kind of it was written the written word. Oral society, I think, goes back. You could say has gone back further. I mean, there is this whole thing of the oral society of there is the speaker and then there's the audience, and as necessitates that the speaker can be has a lot of times that is mean one speaker and a lot of people have to listen to them, which I don't know if Patsy's going for that. She's appealing to the great businessmen or those who aspire to great business domination, who wish to impart their wisdom on their employees and make sure that they do their jobs and stuff like that. Um, Storytelling, discussion, debate, or just the simple enjoyment of words and word games cease to be a part of our daily lives. Um, I kind of disagree with that in the sense that it seems like we're awash in storytelling, awash in discussion and debate, and well, the simple enjoyment of words and word games. I think that is still there, but it's always probably been a niche market there. It was what it would do. Um, here's a couple of sentences. We are cynical about what is true, and we've lost the freedom to speak. These are two sentences that are set next to each other, and I'm interested. Is this a transition point, or are those two sentences supposed to be? Are those sentences supposed to be related? I'm not quite sure if they are. Um, I think rightly there should be a lot of cynicism about what is true, about checking our sources. I mean, that has come to the point now where this was written in probably the bulk of this book was written in the 1990s, but even more so now. I think people are cynical about what's truth. In some ways, we've gotten so much freedom to speak that you can't hear anyone. That goes back maybe more to the noise thing. Then we get into what I would say is probably Patsy's kind of the Rodenberg's. I'm not going to say Patsy. That's me being an ass. Rodenberg's conservative side. We all recognize the need for politically correct language. Oh, thank you, Rodenberg. But when it is taken to a point, because we've gone too far, when it is taken to a point that people are frightened of saying anything or opening up any debate for fear of saying the wrong words, then people feel fully silenced. This kind of seems to go down to certain people of certain political persuasions feeling like that they've been silenced by the politically correct, which is a way of saying I should be free to say asshole things and not suffer repercussions, or even just to have people say I disagree and I'd like to debate you about that. Some people find that silencing when they weren't ever challenged on that stuff before. And I mean, she does make a link with people being not feeling like they can be horrible bigots, with then explodes outwards into obscene edges of ugly name calling without clear abilities to listen and express ideas. Vulgar and dehumanizing language can thrive in its place. So someone's saying that because you've squished down people saying this in their own name, that's caused trolls to come along and be little violent little fuckers on the anonymous fuckers on the margins. Of course, a lot of these people aren't anonymous anymore. They're quite proudly spewing whatever vitriol that they have. A lot of speech going on at the moment, and you know, uh, it's probably all matter of your perspective of whether that's lovely speech, that is attacking people, or on the other side of people celebrating people who say like, hey, I get to actually be myself for a change, and screw you people who want me to go back into a closet or not be who I am going to be. We live in an age of sound bites where even our leading politicians can only speak in disconnected fragments and simplistic homilies. The great speech is no longer in many of them. Yeah, so in some ways that feels like empty rhetoric in itself. Like it's being very vague about exactly who are the great speakers going to be, and what are they going to say. I mean, there is definitely a thing of the soundbite now, of limited attention span, um, and that's a part of that is the medium. A part of that is just the mass media effect of mass media. Part of that is just, yeah, people aren't particularly interested. Politicians don't speak particularly with any connection a lot of times to um, expressing themselves in a way that is going to engage other people. Um, you know, it's like the influence of media is so all pervasive and complex. It has done much to usurp our need for words and silenced us. Trusting like of when this was written. I do get the sense that a lot of this seems to be written before a time when there's been an explosion of expression. I'm a joker like me is yakking away on the internet. I mean, very purposely in a completely obscure little backwater, which no one ever must know about. But I mean, there's so many people who grab that megaphone and have plenty of speech, and are working to work, and that's good. That some of the some right or left, that is always a good thing. Whether it's having an effect, whether it becomes disempowered speech is another thing. Whether you're shouting, you're preaching to the converted, whether it's going to make an actual change in society, I don't know. I don't know. She used she's We all hear the ring of truth when it is spoken, as in the speeches of Barack Obama, which isn't actually where I was expecting her to go. Though, I mean, you could also say, oh, Barack Obama is a very conservative left person, who was very much kind of about process politics, but also was able to marshal his speaking skills to a certain amount of effect. To a certain amount of effect. I mean, you look at the great orator of the orange-haired president, and you can say, well, it can get used other ways, and not be as ringing Shakespearean as others, and the quality of speech. I don't know. I didn't expect her to use Obama there, so I was surprised about that. Um, Words, like notes, strike a resonant chord. In moments like this, we find ourselves willing to trust in words completely. There is delight in our free voice delivering great words, which I always think of the evil motherfuckers who are great orators in those cases. Or this is probably comes from being focused on acting and actors. It's like, yes, wow, you get an emotional response, and that's great in a play or in a movie or in a TV show. But when it becomes an actor in political action, you can have somebody who's a great speaker on the what would be a very harmful side, and but it does it you can't deny its power there. um and there is this thing of I wonder a lot of times where she's conflating the speaker with its audience. The listen, like, is she saying that we should be all good listeners, or are she saying that we should take up our own speeches, our own truth, and deliver that? And what would a world be like that we all were great communicators and speakers? Probably that would be an interesting world. Not maybe not a bad one. Uh, we're remarkably bad at communicating with each other. Ah, which is why is it so hard for us to make sense? So hard to get a point across easily. So difficult to find the right word. Uh, are we, on the whole, resistant to words? We no longer seem to collect words, own them, or relish them in the way we once did, where we slip back into nostalgia, where she seems to think that because Shakespeare was a great writer and there was a great flourishing at one point in history, that means we've all fallen down from there and we're no longer as good. And it's like, I think that was a particular time and place, and I think we're also talking about an incredibly small percentage of the population. And if you looked at the percentage of the population right now that are great communicators, that are great writers, that are great speakers, it's probably the same or maybe even a little bit larger due to the demands of and opportunities of media and politics. Um, so I do kind of grow a little weary of her nostalgia in a lot of this. She's harkening back to the good old days, which I'm not convinced were ever that good. um, the treasury of spoken words, once living and thriving as oral English literature, now seems like precious artifacts locked away in dusty tomes. I think this goes to her thing of her feeling strongly that people should still be memorizing and holding poems within themselves, which, I mean, don't mistake me. That is a wonderful practice. And the times that I've memorized poems and I've held them in me, that is great. And you engage with those words on a deeper kind of muscular level. I totally agree with her like that. It's like, but is that really the thing that's gonna? I don't know if that's realistic. We have so much. It's been surpassed by the media. We needed to do that in the past because we couldn't have it on our we weren't able to carry it around on our phone or something like that. But that's no longer there, which has got a lot of advantages. I have a far larger library just in my phone than someone like Shakespeare or someone like that had, um, you know, in their thing. But I mean, they did have it in their bones. I don't know. I don't know. It seems like you're raging against the storm, and the storm doesn't even notice anymore. Our very education has been just one of many cultural barriers which, ironically, ought to be spreading words and seeding them for our fruitful use. This is probably decrying what education is like now, which is much more silent, ticking boxes, especially for us lower plebs who don't get to go to private school, where they do stuff one on one and speeches and debates and stuff like that. So a little in the beginning was the word, because the word is that it's a creative act. The words create something, whether that also happens in written words. Patsy, Rodenberg is like, not really. She feels it's spoken. Spoken is all. We need words for the health of our lives, our relationships, and our societies, which I would agree with. I would agree with that those, it's what holds us together. Of course, I would probably also argue that that's with civilizations as complex as ours, that's probably both written words and numbers now are the key things, which I don't know if Patsy would like. Um, you can still find vestiges of this oral potency, the power of words, throughout Africa, India, Aboriginal Australia, and the Far East, in the small pockets of Europe and North America among Native American cultures. It's just like, okay. Um, yeah. This is where we're going. The sanctity of words is an essential element of the Navajo worldview. We believe that the wind comes in at the top of your head, where your hair begins to grow, and every time you speak, it is the wind that speaks. Which I'm just going to be deeply kind of skeptical of using those more grounded cultures, which I can't help but thinking it's like, oh, more primitive, not corrupted by culture as us, which is all bullshit, but they feel like it's that romanticizing thing. um we have stopped talking to one another. We have ceased being an oral culture. Our stories come to us in pictures. I mean, pictures with words involved in them, and a lot of our entertainments are movies and TV shows based on books. So still, there's still kind of a word thing of which may not be. There's oral, there's written. I don't know. Students in classroom learn passively without much genuine verbal interaction or challenge. Literacy skills, reading and writing, are more highly regarded than talents for oracy, the ability to express oneself fluently and passionately in speech, which I would agree. Um, that seems to be something, yeah, that is gets reserved for the upper classes, where there's an expectation you're going to be the guy, you're going to be the leader at the front of the class, but the front of the crowd, but the crowd itself doesn't need that kind of an education, or else they might start getting above themselves. A lost voice cannot serve the needs of great thoughts or potent feelings. It cannot meet its demands. It turns off a listener's need to hear. Okay. Um, we can reclaim a passion for words by learning to use them with more craft and skill. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, I've got, and the thing I think that's frustrating me is, like, I have a passion for words. I recognize the potency for it, and I want to get to the craft and the building of skill. Um, each of us has within us a natural rhetoric that manifests itself when we need to communicate. Call it our native eloquence. Yeah, I mean, this is the whole thing of, like, there's natural born. Hopefully, it's not just natural born speakers. Hopefully, it is something that you can learn a little bit, because that's why I'm here. um, um, I don't think, yeah, okay. I don't think anyone goes through life without moments when a clear connection to language is needed. And in those moments, we are clear and eloquent. I think I'm grateful to have this channel, because I've had moments where I've needed to be able to speak clearly. And however haltingly and bad I am at it at this point, I think I think by focusing on this, I've gotten better at communicating my points, and hopefully being more listenable, people listening to me. uh, yeah, I think a lot of people go through life and don't have that ability to express themselves, which can lead to a lot of negative outcomes for themselves. um, each day, words either get us into trouble through lack of careful use, or else save the day by means of judicious practice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I have been reckless with my words, and completely careered off. Um, trying to be more judicious. Many barriers have arisen between us and the spoken word, denying us both the need for and the access to words, needs and access which are essential parts of life. These barriers are blocks which we must confront and break down if we want to wrestle successfully with the spoken word. Before we get to any texts and exercise Before we get to any text and exercise words through our voice, we have to sort out why we find it so hard to speak the very words that should naturally excite and liberate us. I mean, I think this is one of these things of, like, is we learn how to speak, we learn how to read. These aren't natural things for a human being. This is something that we program our mind to. I think there is a lot of cultural stuff. I think they talk about how one of the great anxieties people have is speaking in public. That is a terrifying thing, and that, I think, is a cultural thing. That is a cultural, um, being terrified of exposing yourself that way, of failing, of not having the right words in you. There is a fear there. Um, yeah, we'll see if we can find the natural communicator inside of me. A great communicator has to stand by what they say, and this not only takes courage, but has to honor the transformative power of language for good or ill. So, I mean, she does acknowledge the good or ill. Um, yeah. yeah, this is the whole thing of is a great communicator a, a good good thing in in all things. I might really believe what I say and convince a whole bunch of people of what I say, but I might still be very wrong, and I might be very destructive in doing that, swaying people that way. Um, and then at the very end here, we get a little bit more a little bit more grounded. We must think of speaking words as a physical act as well as an intellectual one. You must throw all of yourself into speaking. And she does talk about the whole body. God damn it. Okay, let's see. Hopefully, the whole body is used in the process, not just the mind and mouth. The physical connections are vital to think about. So this is hopefully the more practical stuff of a vocal coach, of saying, this isn't just your voice, this is your whole body. You are going to notice as you speak, as I know from doing videos. Boy, after I've done a bunch of videos in a day, I feel tired. It has been a workout, and hopefully I think as I've gone along, I've developed more muscles that way. I've also worked at warming myself up and doing all of that stuff. Um, any speaker who desires to improve the way he or she speaks ought to consider the process as a form of physical exertion that will ultimately bring release. How we'll be working with words as a form of physical release that clears the brain of the pressing weight of what must be said. Confessional speaking is also like a purging. We empty ourselves of burden in order to feel better. The sounds we make can be cathartic. Voicing and speaking is healthy. Like laughter or sobbing, speaking is about release, which makes sense for me. Wait, makes sense to me. I mean, I guess it made sense to Freud. This is the speaking cure, as it was. There's something about talking things out, talking out problems, talking about your feelings, talking about your past. That is all about release. Um, there is, and I mean, this is, I mean, I'm going on a very personal journey with this. I do recognize that Rodenberg isn't particularly addressing a more wider speech, a speech that is political speech, a speech that is community speech, and the strengths and pitfalls of that. Just because you speak well doesn't mean you have the best ideas or the ideas that should win out. You shouldn't judge those ideas on how well they are presented by a speaker, but on the merit of the ideas themselves, because everyone's going to have to live with them. Um, yeah, yeah. So that is the first chapter, connecting connecting with words, which I think is finally at the end. I feel like we got to that connecting. We got a lot more justification, a lot more nostalgia. That is kind of frustrating. I am hoping as we go along that chapters going forward will have a little bit more direct application, that I can sift out some of the thoughts behind and use the practical stuff. I don't have to buy into everything Rodenberg has to say, but she is somebody who's got a lot of experience, and I hopefully will be able to use that to improve my communication skills. That's what I'm hoping for. All right, as I warned, it was going to be a long and rambly one. I've been Jay. More videos later.